Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic, a discussion between a professional film critic and lecturer and me, his wife of 20 years, who just likes to watch movies for fun. I'm your co-host, Julia.
This is Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone.
And tonight we decided to watch the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock Psycho.
Yeah, that's right.
That felt like a lot to say.
Alfred Hitchcock Psycho?
Yeah.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, this is back when, in many cases, he was the biggest thing in the movie. I mean, he did a film where Paul Newman and Julie Andrews were the star, but for the most part, he was the biggest name above the title. So people went to a Hitchcock film because it was the master. It was Hitch.
The Hitch.
It was the Hitch, man.
Okay, well, we have both seen this movie many times. In fact, this is your number 2 favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, until that cursed Tree of Life came and knocked it off the top plateau. But yeah, this is my favorite film, basically. I've seen it so many times. I've got so many stories attached to it. Want to hear one?
Okay.
So one time I was selling hot dogs in front of Home Depot. Did that for many years. And then it was a really quiet day.
For like a year, but okay.
It felt like it was many.
It was a long
many
winter.
Years. It was very, very long.
Okay.
So I'm selling hot dogs and I'm wearing my Psycho shirt because I've got a few of those. And this man comes up to me and is buying a hot dog from me, and I'm putting a relish on his brat. And he's like, "Oh, I like your shirt." I said, "Yeah, it's my favorite movie." He's like, "Really?" So the guy starts quizzing me on Psycho stuff. I'm like, yeah, I know. Anthony Perkins directed the third one, but I think Richard Franklin did a great job with the second film. And yeah, I know it was all, chocolate syrup and not really blood in the shower scene. And the conversation is getting pretty good. It's good. He clearly is a Psycho fan. He knows I clearly am one. So we're like finding a bond. He's kind of an older guy. And finally goes, all right, I'll show you. I'm like, show me what? He pulls his wallet out, hands me his driver's license, and his name was Norman Bates. And I'm going, oh, wow, okay. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And he's like, yeah, mother lets me out of the house sometimes. And he said it with such conviction that it scared me. I'm like, okay, here's your hot dog. Have a nice day, sir.
His parents named him Norman Bates.
His name is Norman Bates, yeah.
That's so wrong. It's so wrong. Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, come on. The movie came out in 1960. He was about my father's age. So, he might have been named Norman Bates back when it was a pretty, it's like a Tom Smith or a George Simpson.
His parents named him just coincidentally before this movie came out?
Sure,
and
why
not
not?
After?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, man.
There's an actor named Alan Bates. It's not the most, I don't know.
That stinks for that guy.
Well, yeah, I'd be like, okay, my name is, you can call me Hanny, but my name is Hannibal Lecter. No relation.
What if he was like, do you have any Chianti with that brat?
Oh, man.
Just all the psychos come out.
Oh, to my hot dog cart?
Yeah.
That's a movie.
That's a movie. All right, well, we decided we're going to do this for October because it's a scary movie, but also because we've seen it so many times and we thought it'd be fun to see if there was anything we missed or anything like that.
Oh, I got lots. Yeah. There's lots to talk about. And certainly watching it with you the other night, it's the first time I've seen it. The last time I saw it was in the theater. I took my dad to see a screening of it at the Maui Mall. There was a retro screening a couple years ago. And I thought, how cool to see this movie with my dad on the big screen, because I don't know if he'd seen it on the big screen since the 60s. And I'd seen it a few times in the big screen, midnight screenings and whatnot. But, I just love this movie. So I thought, oh, cool. So I took my dad to see it. And the whole time, all he did was talk about Janet Leigh's car. Like, that's a nice car. Oh, man, she got pulled over. Oh no, look what he's doing to her car. Oh, come on. He was like talking during the movie. All he wanted to do was talk about her car.
During the movie?
During the movie. I mean, we were the only ones in the theater, so it was okay. But still, I mean... No suspense, no empathy for the loss of human life. No, it was all about her car.
I thought you were going to say, when you said all he wanted to do was talk about Janet Leigh's, I wasn't expecting you to say car.
No, her car. That's all. Yeah, he was obsessed with her car.
That's funny. All right, well, let's get into it. And right away...
Let's pull back the curtain.
With the opening credits, I even asked you, I'm like, what's up with these opening credits? Because it's like these lines coming through, and you said...
It's a split.
Yeah, you said, oh, I think it has to do with a split personality. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a split from reality. Yep.
All right, well, our movie opens up in Phoenix, Arizona.
Where all the crazies are, yeah.
And we have Janet Leigh as Marion Crane with her boyfriend, Sam, in a hotel room.
I love it you don't say his name. It's John Gavin. By the way, the one snoozer performance in this movie, John Gavin. I don't like his performance.
He doesn't have great, like... Anything.
I'm sorry,
no charisma.
But he just, no. It just doesn't do it for me. It's a stage performance.
I mean, he's handsome and he's got a good body.
That's it.
But that's it.
That's it. Yeah. I'm sorry, John Gavin
he
fans.
He looks good with his shirt off.
Yeah, I mean, she's giving a really nuanced, interesting performance, and he's giving like an awkward stage performance. He looks great, but man, as an actor, he just does not do it for me.
So you think so this is definitely like post-coital, like this
is post-coital because she's halfway dressed.
Yeah, that's what I said.
But she keeps stopping. Well, it's post-coital because it's like it's post-coital, then it's like you start to put your clothes on, but then you get back into it, then you start to take your clothes off, and then you're like, oh, I got to put my clothes on, so you start putting it on. So it's post-coital.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, I got to get back to work, my boring office. But they're having this conversation kind of about how they want to be together, but they're just kind of sneaking around.
Yeah, they're at this really weird crossroads in their life, and he is getting a divorce, or his divorce rather just came through, and she just wants to run off with him.
Right. But he's like, oh, I live in this tiny shack and I have to pay alimony. I mean, he makes it sound like he has no money at all.
Yeah.
So... that's sad because she said, no, I want you to, next time you're here, you're going to come to dinner and my sister and I are going to broil a steak and it's going to be, respectable.
He clearly has enough time or certainly enough money to go to a gym, but not enough money to take Janet Leigh to dinner. Jerk. All
right. So.
And by the way, let's talk about the camera work from tippity top. I mean, voyeuristic, man. We lean into this sleazy motel room, rather. A lot of those in this movie. And and not only do we see them, he's almost completely undressed. She's in her underwear, by the way, a first for cinema. First time we ever saw a major actress in her underwear.
She's not in her underwear. She's in a slip and a bra. You don't even see her underwear.
She's in her underclothing.
Okay.
Her undergarments.
All right.
Okay. The Sears
catalog. I forget
catalog.
That's the 1960s.
Yes. So this is as scandalous as it gets. Yes. Yeah. And at one point, they fall back in bed together, and the camera leans into them. It's like, ooh, this is like the camera is acting as we are. We are sleazy. We are curious. We are watching.
All right, so she gets dressed. She has to go back to work. They're not going to leave at the same time because scandal. It's like they're in Phoenix. I mean, this is a big city. What does she think? Like people are watching them?
Yeah,
because it is like a hotel that you pay by the hour.
Absolutely. And remember, like she runs into her boss at a pivotal moment. So no, I think this is Phoenix back when it was smaller than it certainly is today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so Janet Leigh as Marion Crane goes back to work, and I don't know, this is when another sleazy character walks in.
A deliciously sleazy Texan walks in. He's about to drop a lot of money on her boss.
Mr. Cassidy.
Yeah, he's great. And he comes in, and it's basically this thing where the boss is both excited and extremely nervous about the amount of money that this rich guy...
40 grand.
40 grand, a lot of money back in 1960. He's gonna leave it, and he gives it to Marion Crane to take it to the bank for him.
Right. But he's flirting with her big time.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I love Pat Hitchcock and relation there. Pat Hitchcock playing the other secretary. She says, he was flirting with you. He must have seen my wedding ring. Okay.
Yeah, as if she could even hold a candle to Janet Leigh.
Pat Hitchcock is delightful in this film, and she's adorable, but yeah, it's Janet Leigh.
Janet Leigh is like an 11.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and then we don't forget the Hitchcock cameo.
Yep, Hitchcock's outside talking to the boss. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so...
and he's wearing a cowboy hat. It's confusing because in the next scene, Cowboy, the businessman walks in. It's a different actor. It's not Hitchcock.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want everyone to know that 40 grand back then is $400,000.
Yeah, I think they made that adjustment when they did the remake.
Oh, they did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they just added a 0, which is correct.
Okay. So Marion is like, okay, I have a headache. I'm going to take this money to the bank and then I'm just going to go home and sleep it off. It's a Friday afternoon. Like, do you care? And her boss says no. So, you know, she leaves with the money and we think she's going to go to the bank and put it in a safety deposit box. But she immediately goes home and starts packing a suitcase.
We see a lot of characters in a process. We're constantly seeing characters as they're making decisions and they're going almost through this like ritualistic behavior of moving from one moment of their lives to another, pivotal moments. And in this case, we're seeing Marion packing her bags. By the way, her bra and slip are now black. That's color coding. Thank you, Mr. Hitchcock. And it's great because we don't have the monologue about I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this decision. No, we're just watching her take action and we know exactly what's going on. The music and the camera are completely telling this story very skillfully. It's not wasting time.
So then she gets in her car and she's driving somewhere and she's at a stoplight and then she sees Mr. Cassidy and her boss cross the street in front of her and the boss kind of looks at her and she waves and then he's like confused, like, wait, why are you... What?
It's a great double take, yeah. And the guilt kicks in. It's like, oh man, busted.
I mean, okay, if that was me and I had just this crazy idea that I could get away with a crime like this, and then my boss saw me, you better believe I'd be like, nope, going to the bank right now. This was a bad idea.
Or I'd be like, I don't know if my boss from my hot dog stand from Home Depot saw me or not, so I'm just going to go home with all this hot dog money I just got.
All right, so she drives through the night and sleeps on the side of the road. And when next we see her, there's a police car stops and this cop gets out and knocks on her window. Gets
in her face, gets in our face. It's great. Hitchcock famously had a distrust of law enforcement, and the paranoia of that is right over this. I mean, the actor playing the cop and the way the cop is written, very sympathetic actually, and he's not asking anything that's out of the question. I mean, she's sleeping on the side of the road. And she's very rude to him, which is like, oh man, this is 1960. This isn't like today.
Well, she's like, have I done anything wrong? Have I broken any laws? And he's like, no.
It's like, you're taking all my time.
Yeah. Like, he's like, are you okay? She's like, yes, I'm just in a hurry. Well, obviously you're not in a hurry if you're sleeping.
Yeah. And she starts the engine. She's like, stop the engine. Okay.
Yeah. So he asked for her ID. So he sees her driver's license.
Yep.
He knows who she is. And then she immediately takes off and he goes in a totally different direction than her. And she ends up in another town and stops at a car dealership.
Apparently it's Garner, which is a real town in Arizona.
Well, no, this is in California, this car dealership.
This is in California?
Yeah. Okay. Remember, what's the guy's name?
Oh, California Charlie.
That's California right. Charlie.
Yep,
That's the character's name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He comes out with a bow tie. He's, he's hilariously aggressive. And he also has this like faux charm that she's completely resistant to.
Yeah. And she's like, he's like, oh, what, are you just sick of your car? And she's like, basically, yes. Like, I just want to trade it in. So with the trade-in, and it's $700 just to get a new car. And she has all her papers and cash, obviously. And then we see the cop parks on the other side of the road and is just watching her.
It's a real sense of paranoia because it's like, oh man, does the cop know? Is this a bust that's about to happen? You're feeling for her too. I mean, she's wanting to get out of there and she's acting completely suspicious. There's a moment that's really agonizing for me where she goes into the restroom. The camera is perched up above, looking down at her like a bird, interestingly enough, watching her as she goes through her purse, getting the exact amount of money out. And, you're like, is the door about to bust open? You just the ritual of what she's doing, there's the persnickety of it. It's agonizing. It's like, do you have the right amount of money? Are you about to get busted? I don't know. Like, I feel the paranoia.
Yeah. And she does the deal and takes off in the car. And then the cop comes and talks to California Charlie. And we hear the conversation, but
the way Marion imagines it.
Oh, that's how she's those aren't real conversations?
None of those conversations are real. She is envisioning what they probably have said.
I thought this was like Hitchcock's way of saving time and money by not showing us the conversations.
I could be wrong, but I believe this is all what Marion is imagining them saying.
Oh. Mm-hmm. That changes everything.
You think?
Yeah, because I thought it's her driving and we're hearing the conversations of...
I think because of the way she's reacting to them.
She's not even reacting, though.
Jana Lee is reacting to them. And when the last
Very
one...
subtly, then.
No, she's reacting in that last one where she's imagining, that creeper, she even flirted with me. You could see that a smile grows on her face as she's thinking about it. Oh. I think she is envisioning what they're saying and thinking about her. Because there is a chance, of course, that her boss didn't even react to it. He probably went to the bar with the Texan, got completely drunk, went home, hung over, and wasn't until the mid-afternoon he's like, I wonder if she turned that money in. I mean, all that stuff about like, let's check on her that she's thinking. Well, it may not even have happened as quickly as she's envisioning it, Same thing with the cop, because when she's envisioning California Charlie talking to the cop, we hear California Charlie's line again. It's unlikely, it's unusual that you high pressure the salesman. That's his line. So I think she's basically creating that dialogue for herself.
Oh, I guess that makes sense because in this timeline, it would probably only be Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in the conversation she's having in her head, her boss is like, well, it's Monday morning. Where is she?
Right.
And it's not even Monday yet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. I think she's fantasizing.
Oh man. I didn't even catch that.
Well, also let's keep in mind at this point, Marion Crane is our protagonist. And she's, even though we like her, and of course she's played by the lovely Jana Lee, the character is unreliable. The character is morally compromised, and the character is in a state of panic. You could say that at this point, she's the psycho. She's the person who comes across as the unstable person. The movie is about her. It's her journey.
Right. Well, and like I told you, I think this first part of the movie kind of becomes a moot point, and it gives us a bait and switch.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You said Bates Motel and switch.
Yeah, that's right. The other former title of this movie, Bates Motel and Switch.
Not as clever. But
no.
Okay.
Not, Alfred Hitchcock's Bates Motel and Switch. No,
that would have been that doesn't really work.
A giant mistake.
All right. Well, then now she arrives at the Bates Motel and she sees Mother in the window.
By the way, did you notice how Marion's boss looks like Walt Disney? And considering that Hitchcock and Disney were probably rivals at the box office, that may not have been accidental.
That's funny.
Be like, yeah, let's find a twerp who looks just like Walt Disney.
Yeah, I'm going to stick it to that guy.
Yeah, screw that cartoon guy.
So Marion honks to get someone's attention, and then this is where we meet Norman Bates.
Played by the wonderful Anthony Perkins.
So... I don't know. There's a lot going on in this meeting, where she's signing in. He's giving her cabin number 1 because it's, quote, close to the office. She hears an argument between Norman and his mother. She's kind of shown her room, but then he offers for her to come up to the house to have dinner. But then she hears the argument, and so they eat in the office.
Think how different how the whole night would have gone if the conversation between Norman and his mother was different. It's like, Norman, you've got a girl down there. This is your shot, boy. You don't have to just be alone in your room doing whatever it is you do anymore. You go down there, you give her some Ritz crackers and maybe some tuna fish, and you sweep that girl off your feet. Otherwise, you're going to be alone for the rest of your life. Thanks, Mother. You're right, Mother. This is my chance. If she had heard that, she would have gotten in her car and gotten the heck out of there instantly, and she would have lived.
Yeah.
But because it's this caustic. Yeah, exactly. Then she's like, oh, I'm going to stay. I feel bad for him. But if it's like, come on, Norman, it's your time. Time to seal the deal, boy. You're going to be a virgin your whole life. Come on, Norman, this is your time. Okay, Mother. Thanks, Mother.
Ew, like Norman's creepy mom talking about his virginity. Like, ugh.
Have you got the guts, boy? Do you? Do you, boy?
Guts. gosh. And Marion's like, and I'm going to go see if there's another motel up the road. Yeah. And he brings down like a stack of sandwich bread, some cheese, and milk. He doesn't even make the sandwiches.
It's very. I always try to see because she takes a bite out of something with a fork. Is it cheese?
Yeah, I think it's a piece of cheese.
Or is it ham? I don't know. Like, did he bring cold cuts?
I don't even know. It looks like, because he said he's going to make sandwiches, but it's like, it's not even put together.
So here's the thing, listeners, and forgive me if some of you are like, we know this movie, okay? You guys don't have to tiptoe around it. So Robert Bloch, the author, of course, based this story on the hideous story of Ed Gein. Some people say Ed Gein, Ed Gein, whatever. But of course, in Robert Bloch's vision, Norman Bates was middle-aged, balding, and short. Danny DeVito, like, okay. The way Norman Bates was written in the novel, creepy. And the way he comes across in this movie, a childlike, handsome boy next door. That's the way Anthony Perkins is playing it. So it's very much like a boy who has had Arrested Development. You know, he's like, this house is my home, my world. Absolutely. And we get that. It's this sense of like everything. Who's to say if he's ever even been to Fairvale? You know, like, does he ever go to town? We see in the sequel that he does, but in this iteration, it's like, I mean, Norman Bates is a guy. I mean, he's a homebody. He's a hermit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're eating dinner. I mean, and then he's like, oh, I'm not even hungry. Like, you just go ahead and eat. And then he tells her she eats like a bird. And we get a whole thing about taxidermy and all.
His hobby is stuffing things.
Yep.
Yep.
But then he says, like, well, a hobby is something that, passes the time, not something that should take up all your time.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, he's just stuffing things like all day. Yeah. So, I wrote down a couple quotes that he says, like, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Classic.
Red flag. We're all in our own private traps, clamoring to get out.
It's full of some amazing dialogue. And the way to do it and the way that they're doing it is they're not leaning into how hideous it is. Mm-hmm. Because once you know the secret of the film, these are all really horrifying lines. The one that always bothers me, I wrote it down. Where is it? Norman's talking about his mother, and he says, I hate what she's become. I hate the illness, which is so upsetting once you consider, you know, because that's one of the questions of Norman Bates is how much is he aware of his existence? Is he aware of his own sickness, or is he only living in a world where it's like, I live with my mother. My mother is this being, this presence in my life who is self-destructive, who keeps me from happiness. Because I do kind of wonder if he has any...
I think he knows, because he says we all go a little mad sometimes.
Yeah, but is he talking about his mother? And obviously that's where we're meant to be as the audience at this point. We're supposed to be questioning, like, okay, he lives in a haunted house. The house isn't haunted by a ghost. It's haunted by his mom. He's living in a house with his mother, and his mother is clearly this oppressive, this perhaps violent and unstable presence in this boy's life.
Mm-hmm. And then we were talking about how, you know, Marion is talking to him, and I think she feels some empathy for him. And
definitely.
You know, because she's like, why, you know, you shouldn't let her talk to you like that. You know, you should basically put her in a home. And he just, you can kind of see.
It's very chilling. Yeah. Because suddenly his sweetness and his obsequious nature just kind of switches off for a moment. And he's outraged that she would say such a thing. Mm-hmm. He's trying to be the welcoming host, but he's also outraged that someone would even suggest this. But of course, the great thing is that he says, of course, I've thought of it myself. So this is kind of like she becomes kind of a makeshift shrink for him. But it's also the same thing for her, because in listening to this kid talk about how he is stuck here and how his life is a trap, she realizes that she's about to step into this whole idiotic adventure that she's undertaking, this thing of running away with Sam with his money, how she's also setting herself up for failure, how she's going to be trapped if she goes through with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like, in some ways, if he kind of saved her and then just tore it all apart. Like, if he if he didn't go through with what he went through with, she would have left, and her life, she could have probably made amends.
I think this film is constantly, giving us, this whole idea of the fickle finger of fate. This idea of like, well, if she had left work a little bit earlier, if she hadn't come into work at all, she wouldn't have known about the money. If she had left work at a different time, if she had left her apartment at a different time, she wouldn't have run into her boss. These are these constant like little twists of fate, these interactions that they seem like they're small moments, or even in this case, it's a long scene. And it's even a dull scene in some ways. The visuals of it, them being surrounded by the stuffed birds, are probably the things that make it so interesting, because it looks like they're about to be attacked by these birds. But the film is constantly showing us these encounters that it's like, this can go any which way. And these characters have no idea that they're just moments from being doomed.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, then, he basically wants her to stay and keep him company, right?
Yeah, as I said to you, like watching the scene, it's like that's another tragic aspect of it. If she had just stayed up all night and just talked to this kid, nothing would have happened. Because
and I said, yeah, that's what women are always being put in, these like uncomfortable situations where they're like, oh, what's this guy gonna do? Do I stay and like pretend to be interested, or do I just say no? I need to leave. And then, she's doomed because of that choice.
Yeah, in the Robert Bloch novel, it's much more unsettling because he's, he looks like a guy who's a carny, whereas here he's the mama's boy. He's a handsome but, awkward mama's boy.
Yeah. So, you keep calling him a kid. Like, do you think he's that much younger than her?
No, but he's got a kid mentality.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think? I mean, like when the detective comes, he's eating candy. We see his bedroom. He's constantly doting on his mother.
That's true.
I mean, and you said it. I mean, he makes her dinner. It's a pile of bread and what? One slice of cheese, maybe?
And milk.
Yeah, I mean, that's, remember the first time I ever made you dinner? That's what I made you, so.
Yeah, you're like, here's a grilled cheese sandwich.
But you got to grill the cheese yourself. But I got you bread, and I got you butter, and American cheese. Okay, you're a girl. You know how to cook, so you go ahead. I'll sit here and watch. I'll watch you eat.
Oh, my gosh. You kind of eat like a bird. Like, creepy. All right, so Marion goes back to her room, which is right next to the office, and then we see that Norman has a creepy peephole.
Yes, he does. Oh, he's a bad boy, that Norman Bates.
He's a bad boy. And
but let's just say it really quickly. In the remake, no. In the remake, it's explicitly implied that he watches her and pleasures himself. I don't get that from this movie at all. I don't think Hitch is going there at all. And people have said, like, well, maybe that. No. He watches her for a couple of seconds. I think the guilt of seeing her undress kind of jolts him. And then he quickly runs back up to the house. So I understand that's a whole other conversation about what Gus Van Sant did in his remake. I don't think Hitchcock was ever going there.
Yeah, I agree. And that remake, that was so uncomfortable.
Well, it was just it was a bad call.
Yeah.
That's not a, there's a lot of things, again, that's a whole other conversation. There's a lot of things about that remake that I do like and admire, but that scene is not one of them.
So we see that Marion kind of is doing some math, like, what's 40,000 minus 700? How much do I have to pay? How much do I have left, and what do I have to pay back?
How weird. The next day, like, hey, it's California Charlie. Oh, you want your car back?
Yeah, she's like, can I just like do a reverse trade and get my money back?
I see you're high pressuring the salesman again.
Okay, so then we were talking about how she takes off her robe, she gets into the shower, and then turns the water on.
Again, she is the psycho of this film.
What?
No one takes a shower like that. Because, I mean, if you want to hear Janet Leigh scream, that should have been the first time we hear her scream. Because either it's going to be freaking cold or it's going to be hot as the sun.
Yeah. And she just turns on the water like, oh, this is so amazing. Like, no
I mean,
way.
I get that part. I mean, she's been driving all day. And she started in Arizona, so of course it's going to feel amazing. But no, like you noticed, everybody's getting out of a car in a weird way in this movie. They're getting out of a car where they're
getting out the passenger side,
right? Which is again, it's a movie thing because it looks better that way. But this is bizarre. Yeah, you turn the water on, then you walk into the shower.
Yeah,
I guess Hitch is like look, we got 2 hours,
we
guys.
We can't wait for you to let the water warm up. Are you insane?
We can't have her we can't have a shot. There's only so many in this intricate shower scene. We can't have a shot of her like putting her hand in, waiting for it to go, not yet, turning the knob. Almost. Ooh, cold. 5 minutes later, okay, now.
Well, she could have turned it on.
And then she uses the bathroom. She flushes the toilet. Ooh, too hot. I'm going to have to wait 2 more minutes. It's like the longest shower scene ever.
She could have turned it on, done her math problem, and then checked on the water. It would have been fine. It would have been perfect.
And so she does flush the toilet to get rid of the incriminating evidence, the pieces of paper.
That's true.
First time we've had a toilet flush in cinema.
Oh.
Yeah. Because Mr. Hitchcock is like, there's going to be a toilet in this movie. I'm going to make you think about toiletries while you're watching this movie.
Oh, my gosh.
Mr. Hitchcock corrupting the world. Thank you, Mr. Hitchcock.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about the famous scene?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Of course I do.
Okay.
The shower scene?
Yeah.
Yes. It's powerful. It's so powerful. It still bothers me. I think the thing that bothers me, 2 things. When the shower curtain gets pulled, depending on how good the quality that you're looking at, we're looking at a Blu-ray and seeing it on the big screen. I always see it. You can see the eyes.
Whose eyes?
You can see the mother's eyes.
The mother's eyes or his eyes? I mean...
Try not to ruin it, Jules. Gosh.
Spoiler.
Whoever's playing Mother, and by the way, it's not Anthony Perkins. He was in a play. He was not in that scene.
Really?
Isn't that wild? Yeah, he was off. Apparently, he was in New York doing a play. Yeah, he was gone by that time.
Oh.
He's dealing with the body afterwards. That was not him during the shower scene. But anyway, the stand-in playing the mother, you can totally see the eyes. It's so upsetting. Also upsetting is the fact that she's holding the hand. She's trying to stop the stabbing. That always bothers me. It's not so, and there's not enough blood. There should be so much more blood.
You know what? You're so right about that.
There should be. I mean, look, and this is 1960. This is the goriest thing ever. This is the most disgusting scene ever. But yeah, I mean, there should have been like 2 cases of Caro or Hershey syrup in this scene.
Yeah, you're right. It's just like trickle, trickle,
trickle, trickle. It's very cute and ornate. But no, like I mean, it should be everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, when he's cleaning it up, it's like it doesn't really take that long.
He gets more of it on his hands than there actually is in the basin of the shower. Yeah. But it's horrifying. It's still very powerful. Having seen it on the big screen, it's like, man, it hits hard, really hard. Although we'll get to it, but I think Arbogast's death scene even harder, especially on the big screen. It just kind of clobbers you. But anyway, yeah. So Norman Bates is running down the stairs, and
so he runs away.
Yes.
And then
she hear, mother, oh God, mother, blood, blood.
Yeah. She grabs the shower curtain, pulls it off, and then she just kind of slumps over. And then we see the camera just like starts at her open eyeball and like pulls back. And amazing.
You saw her swallow.
I did. You guys.
Did.
Because maybe
that's the last gasp of her life. People like gently screwed up. That's a hard shot. She had to like hold that position.
Yeah, maybe that is.
Obviously, her eyes are dilated because she got a freaking camera light on her eye. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the last thing her body does before she passes away. I'm willing to give it. I'll go there.
You'll go there. All right, that's very generous.
Gently screwed up. Screw you guys. This is 1960. Do you know how many times she had to hold that position?
I mean, the way her face is like up against the bathroom floor, like
it's so disturbing. Like honestly, the first time, every time I see it, I think like it looks like a still photo. She's so frozen.
Yeah,
I
know. I think that part is actually the most disturbing part of the whole thing to me. I mean, the stabbing, yes, but because we don't really see the knife, like
there's one frame where it kind of looks like the knife is piercing skin. I don't even know if it's accidental.
But is it how many? Because didn't they say it's edited like, I don't know, 200 different cuts to make the scene or something? I
have the exact number. I don't have it on me right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to teach a class on this in 3 days. So I'll have the number then. I don't have it on me right now. But yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's one of the most brilliantly edited sequences in cinema. And one of the most famous. People don't know this movie, but they know the shower scene.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have family members who, I think my grandma, she's like, yeah, I've been scared to take a shower ever since.
Yeah, I think I had that experience as a kid when I saw the sequel, when I saw Psycho 2. I had that experience. Yeah. Not with this one, but yeah, maybe because it was in color. I don't know. Yeah.
No, but I think her like slouched over the bathtub with her face against the floor.
It's so sad.
Is the worst part for me.
And the fact that it's, the correlation is that it's the blood going down the drain. It's like the blood, leaking from her life, and then it
Yeah.
it fades into her eyeball, and we get that amazing circular pullout. Yeah,
Maybe there's not as much blood. Well, no, it doesn't make sense because the water kept running.
Yeah. No, I mean,
But
she should just be bleeding like crazy.
There really should be blood everywhere.
There should be a lot more blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Norman cleans up this murder scene.
Yeah, this
because he
massacre.
runs back in and acts shocked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he is.
Yeah.
He is. Because according to him, if we're going to look at it like he has no sense of reality at all, he went up to his, into his kitchen. He's sitting there. He's like, I wonder if she likes the sandwiches. And then he's like, Mom, what do you think? Mom? And then he goes running back down and sees that Marion is... Actually, no. So his reality is that he suddenly sees his mother and she's got blood on her. Okay.
Yeah.
So mother comes running in and she's probably wet and got blood on her.
Yeah.
But not nearly enough blood. And so he goes running down the steps. And
Yeah. So he has a mop. He cleans up everything and then wraps her in the shower curtain, her body, moves her car to put her in a huge trunk, by the way.
It's the 60s.
I know.
And, the moment that it makes probably the most shocking of all, he grabs the newspaper, it has all of her money on it, and just mindlessly throws it in the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this crime of passion, this major plot device suddenly just literally sinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's wonderful. Suddenly we're in a completely different movie. Because, oh my God, this is the guy now. We're going to be following this guy. Where are we going from here? It's like if Julia Roberts got killed off at the beginning of Runaway Bride and there was no Richard Gere. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Well,
actually, that'd be great. Man, I love that idea so much.
Well, now, because you were saying Marion is psycho, but no, Norman is the true psycho, obviously.
Or he's likable enough. He's trying to protect his insane, crazy mother. And he's a victim of circumstance. He's stuck in this house. He's stuck in this world. He's got nothing going on.
You can't defend a person with multiple personalities who's a murderer.
We don't know this yet. We don't know this. At this point,
at
this point, he's the boy next door.
You're right. We don't know.
At this point, it's like he's a slave of circumstance. He's stuck in this house. He's got this insane mother who walks around hacking up hotel guests. And he's like Renfield to her Dracula.
You're right. We don't know yet. All right. So then we watch the car just go into the swamp. It's like, wow, lucky that Norman has a swamp on his property to protect his mom. I mean, what are the odds?
Every good haunted house needs a swamp in the back. And boy, isn't it satisfying, listeners, to when it finally sinks? Because isn't that like the most aggravating thing when it only sinks halfway? It's like, oh, come on, man, sink. When it finally sinks, like, yeah, he did it. He got away with it. Because that's the thing about movies. You could live vicariously through the villain, or in this case, the anti-hero. And, it's not good what he's doing. It's very bad. It's very bad that he's got a corpse as well as $400 in the trunk.
But $40,000.
$40,000, excuse me. But you want the thing to sink. So when it finally does, it's satisfying. And he gives a little smile. It's like,
but I do like that he's sweating a little bit. Like, oh no.
Big time.
Yeah. All right. So after that scene, we cut to Sam, your favorite character, writing Marion a letter. And it's kind of like, oh, now that I'm sitting in my tiny little shack, I'm just realizing it is big enough for two. Let's be together.
And in the front of the store, in this really, really pathetic looking hardware, this is like the store that's failing to compete with Home Depot, by the way. This is like the world's most boring hardware store. There's this old woman talking to the young man at the counter. And did you get a whiff of this conversation?
No.
At one point she goes, death should always be painless. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Death should always be painless.
That's one of the lines. Death should, yeah. She's like talking about a humane way to kill the animals or something. Yeah.
Weird.
It's an interesting correlation, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of painful death in this film.
Oh, well, Hitchcock, it's kind of a sick joke on Hitchcock's part. By the way, did you also see the license plate on the first car that Marion's driving?
What does it say?
Well, it's ANL, anal. So it's like Hitchcock, like, he, Mr. Toilet Man.
Oh my gosh.
Hitchcock had a very childish sense of humor. Anyway.
All right, so Lila is Marion's sister, and she goes to Sam.
Yeah, this is Vera Miles.
And she's kind of like, where's my sister? You know, is she hiding? You know, let me know where she is. And she's the one who hires the private investigator, Arbogast. So
Martin Balsam.
Sam is just, again, completely like, useless. I don't know what's happening. Useless.
Why would you? I mean, I understand why she wants to run away with this guy, but I mean,
he's really good in bed.
That's it, folks. He looks great without a shirt, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. So Arbogast says that he's gonna go on the trail. He's gonna try and find her, and but Lila doesn't want to involve the cops at this point. And I was telling you, at this point, if she had filed a missing persons report, that cop that had followed Marion all the way to the car dealership, he would have known. He would have, like, given them clues. You know what I mean?
Yes. You know, that's a good point. You know what else I was thinking about it? You remember the film he does right after this is The Birds, and there's a lot of visual precursors for The Birds. Do you remember the lead in that movie, Rod Taylor? Remember what a handsome stud muffin that guy is? Not to mention what a great actor. Can you imagine if he had played Sam Loomis?
Oh, yeah.
Better movie, yeah?
I know. He kind of reminds me of another actor. I'm not going to be able to remember his name.
Cary Grant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cary Grant.
Yeah, he's got Rod Taylor, man.
He's got the Cary Grant
Total
looks.
stud. You understand why Tippi Hedren's like obsessed with this dude.
Yeah.
But John Gavin, I'm sorry, no.
Do you think that John Gavin was like, could have been Cary Grant, or like he had like the look and then he just didn't have the charisma?
Well, I know that Hitchcock was using his TV crew from his television series Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He was shot in black and white because it was cheaper, not necessarily for stylistic reasons, because at this point, you know, most movies were in color in 1960. So I kind of suspect that John Gavin was like, okay, who can we afford? Because, you know, Janet Leigh's the name. She's the big name in this, and she's only in it for the first act. And then, you know, Anthony Perkins, primarily a leading man in romantic comedies and dramas, but also a stage actor, not necessarily like a big movie star. This is a big break for him. And Vera Miles had worked with Hitchcock once before, but character actress. I mean, this is not like, you know, Cary Grant in North by Northwest or, you know, or James Stewart. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not to say that these aren't top tier actors, but John Gavin's in the movie. So... But let's talk about Martin Balsam as Arbogast, the detective. I love his entrance because it's like the cop. His first scene, the camera is on him. It's an intense close-up. You do get the sense like it feels like he's watching me watch him. Like it's really intense. And the way he enters the movie is literally very invasive. Like he walks right into the camera.
Mm-hmm. So he goes around to all these different motels and shops and eventually does end up at the Bates Motel.
Yeah.
And that makes him a pretty good private eye, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, he goes down the list of all the possible motels, and it is remarkable that he picks the one that's famously, you know, or for this region, it's famously off the road. It's become a problem getting there once the highway was altered. So it really is like, it's the place that people used to go to.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about his conversation with Norman.
It's wonderful. And Norman puts on a great act. He does normal really well.
Yeah.
He really does. Because
he gets flustered.
Well, once he realizes what this cop is after, and also he says exactly the wrong thing. Because initially, it's the conversation is going to end, and then Norman lets it slip that, you know, no point in turning on the sign. A couple came the other day. And the detective's like, oh, the couple came the other day? Really? And that's where he blows it. Because it was... The detective was about to leave.
Yeah, because he said no one had been there for a couple of weeks. Yeah. And then he said, oh, he didn't recognize Marion. But yeah, because he said that couple had come, he's like, oh, I thought you said that it'd been a couple of weeks.
He starts to stutter, which is a great touch on Perkins's part. And I love the back and forth between these two.
I didn't think the police went looking for people who aren't in trouble.
Oh, I'm not the police.
Oh, yeah?
We have reason to believe that she came along this way, may have stopped in the area. Did she stop here?
Well, no one stopped here for a couple of weeks.
Do you mind looking at the picture before committing yourself?
Commit myself? You sure talk like a policeman.
Look at the picture, please.
Mm-hmm.
Sure?
Yeah.
Well, she may have used an alias. Marion Crane's her real name, but she could have registered under a different one.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't even much bother with guests registering anymore. You know, one by one, you drop the formalities. I shouldn't even bother changing the sheets, but old habits die hard. Which reminds me.
What's that?
It's the light, the sign. We had a couple last week said if the thing hadn't been on, they would have thought this was an old deserted...
Well, you see, that's exactly my point. You said that nobody had been here for a couple of weeks, and there's a couple came by and didn't even know that you were open.
Yeah.
Well, as you say, old habits die hard. It's possible this girl could have registered under another name. Do you mind if I look at your book?
No.
Thank you. Get the date somewhere.
There's nobody.
So I have a sample of her handwriting. Oh, yes. Here we are. Marie Samuels. That's an interesting address.
Is that her?
Yeah, I think so. Marie, Marion Samuels. Your boyfriend's name is Sam. Mm-hmm. Was she in disguise, by any chance? You want to check the picture again?
Look, I wasn't lying to you, mister.
Oh, I know that. I know you wouldn't lie.
You know, it's tough keeping track of the time around.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was raining, and her hair was all wet. I tell you, it's not really a very good picture, either.
No, I guess not. Well, tell me all about her.
Well, she arrived rather late one night, and she went straight to sleep and left early the next morning.
Well, how early?
Oh, very early.
Mm-hmm. Which morning was that?
The next morning, Sunday.
I see.
There's this remarkable angle where the camera is underneath Perkins as he's leaning forward and swallowing. He's chewing and swallowing his candy, so he looks like a bird. And you just get the sense of like the flop sweat that's just building on this guy, you know, and suddenly all of his all gosh OG decorum goes out the window because it's like this guy is putting the mystery together in front of him. So the second time he says, look at the picture. We actually see the picture as Janet Leigh, and it is startling to see her again. Even briefly in that little photo. And it startles Norman too. He's like, oh yeah, her.
Oh yeah.
Shower girl.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is a terrible photo. And then he's like, oh yeah, we had dinner it's like, okay. Obviously, he says like, oh, I didn't recognize her. She wasn't here. But then he tells Arbogast, oh yeah, we had dinner together in my parlor. Like, obviously he was lying.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Arbogast knows it too. And he handles it very well. Because it becomes an interrogation.
And then Norman even offers for him to go into all of the cabins while he's changing the sheets. And there is a moment where Norman is going to like open up cabin number 1 and decides against it. And so Arbogast is like, cabin number 1.
Yeah.
But Norman also lets it slip about his mom.
That's another thing.
That the mother had talked to Marion.
He's trying to do the folksy thing, but he's also oversharing. And Arbogast looks and sees the house on the hill.
Yeah. So because Arbogast thinks that the mom talked to her, he's determined to go talk to the mom.
Which is exactly the right angle.
Yeah.
And Norman freaks out about it and says, get out of here. Even with a search warrant, I don't want you coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
So he calls Sam and Lila and he's like, I'm
From a phone booth on the side of the road out in the middle of nowhere. I love that detail. It's like, that's the world we used to live in. And they have like these little glowing booths. They glow and light up as soon as you open the door. Yeah, I mean, do I remember this? I do remember phone booths in New York that did that. When as soon as the door slot opens, suddenly like the little sign would glow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You guys, this guy, whenever we would travel places, he if you spotted a phone booth, he'd be like, "Oh, take my picture in this phone booth."
There's a phone booth still in Wailuku on Maui, and it's in front of the Wailuku Library. I mean, I look at that phone booth. I mean, for me, it's like,
does it work?
You hear a dial tone.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't dare put that thing to my ear or anywhere near my mouth. It's the same phone. Like,
no, I would
since the
disinfect
80s.
It first.
I would do an exorcism on it first before using it. That thing is.
You should like call somebody collect just for funsies.
I'll call you.
No. Me.
You'd be like, "Hi, Jules." No, I look at that thing like it's Mount Rushmore. Every time I walk past, I'm like, wow.
That's funny. I should give you some disinfecting wipes and then you can try it. And it'll be very nostalgic for you.
I'm just going to waste a quarter. That's all that's going to happen.
No, okay. I bet you it's like a whole $1 now.
You're right.
It's not a quarter anymore.
Wow, I really am living in the past, aren't I?
Yeah.
Hey, where can I get some cigarettes? They got those cigarette machines anywhere? Those I miss because like you go into it's like the back of like a restaurant.
You don't even smoke.
No, I don't. But I miss seeing them because like you would put like the quarters in and there's like this lever, like this round lever, and you pull it back and like the chute opens and it would come down. I always thought that was so cool.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you go and get like a bag of chips or something.
And now I go into like a restaurant, like whatever, it's like the Hard Rock Cafe or whatever, and they got condom machines in the bathroom. I'm still like, wow. That's amazing.
So you just like things that dispense things?
I just like things that dispense. Yeah, that's my weird hangout. I want my bathroom to have like little dispensaries and for like floss and like toothbrush.
My gosh, if we ever like custom like a bathroom, I'll make sure to do that for you.
Cool. Could I have like a little cranky thing and I got to put a quarter in? Oh, I love that.
It's just like one quarter. You just keep putting it in every time.
Yeah. Like a stack of quarters on the side of it.
Oh my gosh.
Love it.
All right. So Arbogast, back to the movie. He tells Lila.
Never mind this amazing suspenseful scene. Let's talk about my hangups. Anyway.
Yeah. He says, I'll be back in an hour. I'm going to go try and talk to the mom. So he goes back to the Bates Motel and runs up to the house and just walks right in. And then he goes up the stairs and then Mother comes out and with her knife and just starts stabbing him. And then he falls down the stairs. But it's a very strange fall because...
because it's not real.
Yeah, because it's not real.
Because, I mean, the build up to it is incredible. I mean, he's walking up the stairs. The camera's walking up with him. We see the door crack a little bit. And then there's this overhead shot where we just see this figure just explodes out the door, stabs him, and he's falling backwards. He's got a slash of blood across his face. But yeah, it's rear projection. He's just doing the whoa in front of this fake screen. Then he falls down, but the horror of it is that Mother does go down to the bottom of the stairs and continues to stab him to death.
Yeah. And then he ends up in his trunk in the swamp.
Yeah, the movie's basically, the 3-act structure is the death of Marion, the death of Arbogast, that's Act 2, and then Act 3 is the death of Norman's deception.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's really the artifice that Norman Bates is helping maintain, and that's what ultimately dies in the 3rd act.
Right.
Because it's not so much that Mother, dies in the 3rd act as much as she's been dead for a while.
I know.
We see just how dead she's been.
Well, and this is when Sam and Lila go to the sheriff of the town. One of my favorite lines in cinema. They're talking about the dress that Norma Bates is buried in, and the wife goes, "Periwinkle blue." Periwinkle blue. Can we talk a little bit about the dialogue? Joseph Stefano, some of the dialogue in this movie is weird. Like in the movie, okay, so the first scene with John Gavin and Janet Leeds, they're talking about how let's be together, and she goes, "I'll lick the stamps," and then they kiss each other. Yeah, well, because he's telling her that he has to send alimony checks to his ex-wife, and so. She's like, well, you write the check, I'll lick the stamps. Yeah. And then she goes, "I'll lick the stamps." And they kiss each other like it's going out of style. And then in the next scene, when Marion Bates, when Marion Crane is at her job and that sleazy Texan is hitting on her, he's like, "Are you happy?" And she goes, "Not inordinately." Like, inordinately. I've never been able to use that in life. I've tried to use that word. It never comes out right. Yeah, that's just one of those words. Like, I know how to spell it, but I could barely say it. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is the part that I liked because Mr. Cassidy, and sorry, we're going back to the very beginning, but he's talking about the $40,000, and he's like, "No, you aren't buying happiness. You're buying off unhappiness." Yeah. And so that's why I think Marion is like, cha-ching. Yeah, the light bulb goes off. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when Marion's having dinner, quote unquote dinner with Norman Bates, Norman throws out the line, "The kitchen's awful homey." The kitchen's awful homey. That's like,
It's so weird. And then when he gets angry at her, when she suggests that mother should be in an institution, he says they click their thick tongues and suggest oh so delicately. It's like, man, Joseph Stefano making it easy on these actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Perkins just sells it. He absolutely does. But there's some strange dialogue in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. But when Sam and Lila go and talk to the sheriff, this is when they find out that Mrs. Bates has been dead for years.
And I got to say, quick pause. When I showed this movie in college to my dear friends Dwight and Rebecca, two things. They got this film from me as a birthday present on video cassette. I didn't own it. And we were all like, let's watch it together. So the three of us are watching it. And Rebecca goes, okay, wait, stop after this scene. She goes, wait a second. So if the mother is dead, then who's killing everybody? And Dwight and I had seen the film many times, and we kind of looked at each other like, oh, you don't know? Oh, man. So we continued to watch the film. We got to the ending, and she was so surprised.
Yeah, well, it is surprising if you don't know.
Yeah, but this was 1998 or something. Yeah, I thought it was amazing that our dear friend Rebecca,
I didn't see this movie until after 2000 when I watched it with my mom for the first time. I didn't know the secret.
My point being, it's cool that this movie could still fool somebody, and man, it really pulled the wool over my buddy's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that the sheriff is just like, yeah, I'm just going to call Norman up and just, see how things are going. And then
it's a small town. So it's just like he pulls up, picks up the phone. It's like 3. Hi, Norman.
Hi, Norman. And it's just like, oh yeah, no, things are fine. Nothing unusual happening.
In the background you hear, Norman, who is it, Norman? Is it another one of those tarts? One of those little tramps you're putting up to your room? Are you making them a sandwich, Norman?
Tarts. Oh my gosh.
Sorry, Sheriff, I gotta go. Norman, are you thinking of sinning again, Norman?
Okay, so she's been buried for 10 years, this woman.
Mm-hmm.
So creepy. So Sam and Lila are like, you know what? I know what the sheriff has said, but we're going to go check out this motel.
And by the way, this decision comes right when they run into the sheriff and his wife as they're coming out of church. I always thought that was an interesting detail.
Mm.
It's the holiest moment in this film because this is a sleazy, pulpy horror film.
So Lila is still thinking that this 40 grand is a key to this whole situation.
Sure.
She thinks that Norman stole the money and killed her sister because of the money.
Or he's storing her away somewhere, or, like there's some kind of emotional connection there. I don't know. Do you think murder is really... It doesn't seem like they think she's dead at this point. They think like she's hiding away somewhere.
Oh, that he's hiding, like she's hiding out and Norman is keeping it a secret?
Or hiding out with the mother.
Oh. Yeah, I don't really know. But they
Most of Norman's friends are such tarts, but you're quite nice, Miss Crane. Do you know how to play canasta? Don't stare at my eye sockets.
My, what big eye sockets you have, Mrs. Bates.
Oh, thank you. I lost them years ago.
Oh my God.
Good soup, Norman. I'm stuffed. Norman, you forgot to rinse the blood out of my shirt. You need to change it. It's been periwinkle blue for a long time.
Oh, you're just creepily good at that. All right. So Sam and Lila check in. They pretend to be, on their honeymoon or something.
And, bless the wonderful Vera Miles, who has real spunk in her performance. I really like just the fire in her character. And she's acting against an actor who just isn't giving her anything. So the fact that they're supposed to play like this like couple on a honeymoon is just, to me, it's like one of the biggest jokes in the movie. Because if anything, it's like, okay, there's no love in this relationship whatsoever. But I don't know. Again, Rod Taylor be like, oh yeah, we get it. You guys want to be you guys need to be in a out of the way motel because that honeymoon is going to be wild. You don't want anybody anywhere near you guys.
Yeah. If the walls are rocking, don't come a knocking. Yeah. Okay. So, but don't you...
Norman, you go see what's going down to that cabin. What? I hear some screaming and some hooting and some hollering.
Okay, but Sam talking to Norman in his like parlor, just asking him like all these questions, and Norman just like, okay, I have to put up with this guy now.
But I get it because I'm annoyed too. It's like, man, his dry line delivery and the way every question sounds exactly the same.
It's like, oh, so tell me more about this taxidermy. Is that how you say it?
So tell me more things because I'm stalling you here right now.
Yeah.
Stalling. Stall.
And then so Lila sneaks up to the house, and the part, where she's like checking out the mother's room and sees like the indentation in the bed and like,
that's a good clue.
Like that's so weird. And then sees like Norman's tiny room and bed. It's like a smaller than... It's a little boy's bedroom. Yeah. It is. It's so creepy.
We don't see, like, they show the record. He's listening to Eroica. Wouldn't it be cooler if it was like...
I thought it was erotica.
No, that's an album by Madonna. Oh. That would come,
it's Eroica?
25 years... Yeah, Eroica. It's an orchestral piece. Oh. Wouldn't it be better if it was like Hermits or, what's another good one? And Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. I don't know, just like a love song. I think that would have been a little more poignant. Or the theme from the Mickey Mouse Club. Another big up yours to Walt Disney.
The Mickey Mouse Club turns people into psychos.
She like turns the record on. M-I-C-K-E-Y.
Oh my gosh. That would drive anybody mad.
Oh man, but yeah, you know what? That boy's crazy. And there's a moment that, like, again, Gus Van Sant had to make it very literal, but it's a suggestive moment where she opens up a book that Norman has. She has a look on her face that's like, we don't know what it is. And of course, Van Sant's like, porn! But, that's not necessarily...
Right.
Who knows? I mean, it could have been drawings, it could have been a picture, it could have been an album. We don't know. But apparently she opens some book and she has like a look on her face. But yeah, in the moment she's in Mother's room, there's that bit where she opens the closet, there's a mirror, and she goes, oh, she gets startled by a mirror. Talk about a trope that's been used in
like her own reflection.
Yeah, talk about a trope that's been used in every horror movie since the mirror jump shot. Yeah.
All right, so she's on her way to leave, and then she sees Norman running up, so she hides and then notices...
Because Norman very easily dispatches John Gavin, because, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but he just, like, knocks him on the head. I mean, he doesn't, like, stab him.
To which I'm like, thank you.
So then she notices, oh, there's a cellar. So she goes down there, and then she sees a woman sitting in a rocking chair. And then that's when she's like, oh, I'm like, Mrs. Bates. And she turns her around and, oh my gosh, it's her corpse.
Yeah, Mrs. Bates is missing some things like eyes and a layer of flesh. And
yeah, surprisingly, her teeth look pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah, all things considered.
But then Norman comes down and tries to murder Lila. And then Sam does save the day.
And he's dressed like his mother.
Right.
And... a voiceover bit that doesn't quite work. He yells, I'm Norma Bates!
Oh.
Do you hear that? Yeah, it's there. I don't like it. I don't know. I do kind of wish that everything that follows, I mean, that line and then, of course, the infamous psychiatrist monologue that follows, it literalizes something that I think is pretty clear. Yeah. I don't know that we need, I mean, even for 1960, I mean, maybe the biggest distinction is that someone says he was a transvestite, and he goes, no, that's not it. And of course, that's not it. Of course, I mean, it has nothing to do with it. I mean, Norman, this isn't a thing about gender or sexual identity. This is somebody who has a
whose brain is broken.
Well, he has a relationship with reality that's completely, not intact. This is somebody who thinks he's someone he isn't. But
yeah. So the whole thing,
to kind of over-explain it.
Yeah, he way over
the Simon Oakfield monologue at the end of the film. Yeah,
because when he comes in and he says, "I didn't talk to Norman. I talked to Mother," And then he could have, that explanation could have been way briefer.
Yeah, it's a real showboating, very theatrical sort of performance this actor is giving. It's like, man, he's like trying to steal the last scene of this movie. The reason I always excuse it, I think there's a really good contrast between the monologue, which I don't care for because it's over-explaining things, and the contrast to the horror down the hallway. We go down the hallway and we see what's become of Norman Bates. And he's speaking in his mother's voice. He has this blanket wrapped around him and he's in this room all by himself. And we hear his inner monologue, very much like Marion's inner monologue. Except, of course, it's the voice of his mother. And we just see that Norman Bates is broken. He is no longer, I mean, he's, any sense of reality is gone. He's probably gone at this point.
Yeah. I think he's still like totally creepy because he's like, as his mom, like, I won't even slap that fly. They'll say he wouldn't even hurt a fly. Yeah. And then he has that creepy look. He looks into the camera.
And briefly, there's a juxtaposition of the mother's skeleton face over his face. It's very brief, but you see it for just a second.
I don't feel sorry for him at all.
I don't know if you feel sorry for him. I just mean that I think the psychiatrist monologue, which is, it goes on too long. It says too much. I don't think we really need it. But I think it's a good contrast between the very clinical description of what has happened versus actually going down the hallway and looking evil right in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how the film ends. And it ends on the visual of the car getting pulled out of the swamp. It's like, this is, and a good reminder, it's a horror film, but it's also a tragedy. It's a deeply tragic story. Mm-hmm. And so the film ends.
That's Psycho.
That's Psycho.
So, I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts you want to share about it?
I took my buddy Tyler on opening night to see the 1998 remake, the Gus Van Sant film. And when it was over, he had told me he didn't know what was going to happen. And he was very surprised by it. Like, yeah, that was interesting. That wasn't bad. It's like, there's something kind of odd about it. And then we go back to my college dorm where we were both living. And I threw on my video cassette that Dwight had gotten me for my birthday. And we watched the original Psycho. And he's like, yeah, that's the movie. That's like, it was like, oh yeah, like that's, wow. That thing, even in black and white, that movie was really good versus what we saw, which felt very pale and sort of detached in some ways. I first saw this movie with my grandmother because I was 13 years old and, my last name is Wurst. It's the bane of my existence. I love it because no one else, I've never met another Barry Wurst in my life other than my dad. We have the same name. So one summer I'm in Florida with my grandmother and it's just the two of us. I don't know where everybody went, but they ditched me and I'm with my grandma at her condo in Florida. And she was very old at this point. And it was just the two of us one afternoon, and we're watching TV together, just talking, and Psycho is the Sunday movie afternoon. And I'm like, oh, wow, Psycho. I don't know that one. And Grandma's like, you haven't seen Psycho. So Grandma Wurst and I watched Psycho together. And what was amazing, listeners, is that, my grandma, let's see, at this point I was 13, so Grandma had to be in her, I don't know, she was way up there. But sharp as a tool, as you would say. And the whole movie, she is going, oh, she's like leaning into me. She's like grabbing my shoulder. She's using my shoulder and my arm to like block her view. It was like watching the movie with someone in 1960. It was really amazing. And I've never forgotten that experience because, it's 1990. At this point, like Psycho 4 was coming out. So, seriously. So to get a window into what it was like to see that film when it came out and to watch it with someone who was really scared of it, because I guess Grandma Wurst didn't watch a lot of horror films, that was very special. And that was the first time I ever saw it. And every time I've gone back to it, I was leaning on details. Like, for example, in Marion's office where she works, there is a swamp and there is a house on the hill on these two pictures that are hanging over her, if you look. So there's some really nice foreshadowing of what's coming. It's the psychiatrist in the last scene does say these are crimes of passion, not profit. Again, it's like, there is such tragedy to this. It's an American story, and it's also a tragedy because it's, the heart of it is this story about this woman who invested in this hotel with this man, and then, the man died, and, you know, it becomes about Norman, this boy, and his mother. And apparently, you know, even without the macabre quality, it's just about how the American dream fails for them. And the death of Marion Crane and Arbogast and all the others in the swamp that we don't know about. I mean, this is an American horror story. It's the other side of the American dream. It's about, you know, dreams that aren't realized. It's about dreams that are broken. Marion's dream of being with Sam, Norman's dream of normality or friendship or anything. This is a movie about you know, the fickle finger of fate, dreams being crushed. It's a very sad and tragic film. I think the music by Bernard Herrmann makes it exciting, and I think Hitchcock makes it exciting. But it's a sleazy, dark, pulpy, nasty film, and I love it. I love this freaking movie so much. It's my favorite Hitchcock.
Yes, it is. And it's good every time I've seen it, too. You know, there's always something that you're like, oh, I didn't see that. So I appreciate it. So, okay, 4 stars for you?
Yeah.
Would you change anything? Maybe the monologue at the end? Or?
I think I want a standalone California Charlie movie. I want a movie about all the weird people that come to his car lot. Because I think Marion Crane is like just one of the weirdies. I mean, he's in California in 1960. This is right before the countercultural movement. I want a California Charlie movie.
Oh.
And I want it to star Steve Buscemi.
That would be amazing.
That would be great. I mean, if anything, you start off, you have an actress playing Marion Crane. What the heck? Have Janet Leigh. Perfect age. You have Janet Leigh play Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, I was like, she's not alive.
Sorry. Didn't mean it to sound like I was being insensitive. Sorry. No, I got the name wrong.
What, is she mother now?
No. Oh my gosh. Sorry. No. Wow. That was dark. No. I meant Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm sorry. So you could have Jamie Lee Curtis in the first. I want a trilogy. The first California Charlie movie, you have Jamie Lee Curtis pull in,
like replay that.
Yeah,
scene.
you do the little scene with Curtis playing Marion Crane, and that's just the beginning. And it's just about all the weirdos that come to California Charlie's place, and occasionally the cop will stop by, and they'll be like horrified over the weirdos, psychos, degenerates, and sickies that get cars up from California Charlie.
Well, there'd have to be more to it than that. It would have to be how California Charlie is also doing some, you know, seedy things.
I like it.
You know, kind of like how Breaking Bad had that sequel with
Better Call Saul.
Yeah, with Saul. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think California Charlie's doing inside? Do you think, I mean, he's very, let's face it, he's very upbeat. Do you think maybe he's like doing a little white powder in the back room?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably has a drug empire.
So, like, when he's asking the customers, like, so, do you want the deluxe auto? Do you want a car that's really good in the wintertime with powder?
Yeah, totally.
Like it. Yeah, so that's my California Charlie pitch. Yeah,
Okay.
I want that movie. Because we got Psycho 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got the remake, which I don't think is the worst film ever made. I felt that way in 1998. I no longer feel that way. I think it's an interesting experiment. I'm glad that it exists.
Well, I don't like that it's scene for scene, like beat for beat, because I feel like it drags.
Yeah, well, it's weird. I mean, I guess to talk about it for a moment. I mean, you know, Van Sant did it right after Good Will Hunting. He could have done whatever he wanted, and boy, did he ever. So he does. He took the original Joseph Stefano screenplay from 1960, but he modernized it, and it's in color. And you have some of the actors giving very contemporary performances, but then you have William H. Macy playing Arbogast like it's 1960. It's very strange. And Anne Heche is sexy and interesting as Marion Crane, but she's playing it at a very different pitch than Janet Leigh. And then, you know, Vince Vaughn, not a bad choice. And by the way, at this point, Vince Vaughn was not a comedic actor. He was known as a dramatic actor at this point. Vince Vaughn is playing Norman Bates. Very on the surface crazy. Like there's no mystery as to where the movie is going. I mean, he's got this weird giggle. He leans in. I mean, he really leans into the crazy from scene 1. It's not the worst choice you can make, but I mean, there's no mystery as to where the movie's going at all. And then the thing is, you really do want Van Sant to take over. You really want to get rid of the Hitchcock stuff because Van Sant's a great visualist. I mean, some of the most amazing stuff is in his second movie, My Own Private Idaho. And there are moments in his Psycho where there are some visuals that are really stunning and scary, but they're really quick little jump cuts. The ending of it is interesting because when you find when Lila finds Mother in the basement, the way Van Sant does it, the basement, there's birds everywhere. They're living birds. And it's like this curtain that she's behind. And when Norman enters and then Loomis enters, it's a big fight scene. In this case, between Vince Vaughn and Viggo Mortensen playing Sam Loomis. Definitely an upgrade in that case.
Ooh, yeah.
Big time. Yeah, shirtless Viggo Mortensen. And what's great when that opening scene between them is ending and she's leaving him and she says, I got to go back to work and you got to put your shirt on. She does this little glance down at his crotch and she smiles. It's great. It's so great. Oh, I miss Anne Heche. But yeah, it's not a disaster. And it's interesting to watch the two films back to back, but it's more of an experimental film than it is like a movie that should have been in theaters. And then, you and I watched Bates Motel with Vera Farmiga and Freddie Highmore, which I thought was wonderful. Loved it. I'd happily, not going to do it right now. I don't have time, but I would love to rewatch that from beginning to end again because I thought that was a terrific show.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, there's a lot of dark things that happen in that show that have nothing to do with, Norman and Norma, like trafficking and drugs subplots.
But you had Nestor Carbonell as the sheriff. I thought he was wonderful.
He was great.
Max Terrio as the stepson. I mean, the cast was wonderful. I love the writing and even the way they bring Marion Crane in there, and it was Brianna.
Yes.
And you had a shower scene where she's in the shower. She's like, no. And she gets out of the shower. I thought that was wonderful. Yeah. No, I thought that show I would compare, maybe not quite as brilliant, but I would say it's like Hannibal, where I thought like this is using television to expand the story in ways that I thought really satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah. But also ultimately a tragic ending.
It's very, very tragic. And, and again, like Psycho should be, there should be tragedy at the heart of it. That's one of the things that some of the sequels didn't quite get. When you make it a slasher movie or a dark comedy of a slasher movie, you're kind of missing some of the things about this that are so special. Psycho 4, the beginning was interesting because it was Olivia Hussey as Norma and Henry Thomas from E.T. as young Norman Bates, and it was very disturbing. They were wonderful in that, kind of a precursor for the television series. And so that's probably my least favorite of the sequels too. I really like all of the sequels. I do. I don't think there's been a bad Psycho movie yet. Maybe the only one that stinks is there was a pilot that was made in 1987 called Bates Motel, and that was a different deal. It was basically about all the wacky stuff that happens at the Bates Motel, and at one point you had someone check into the Bates Motel. It was Jason Bateman as a ghost. He was the ghost of a high schooler who killed himself.
Oh my God.
It was pretty bad. And one point you get Lori Petty in a chicken suit. It's bad. That pilot is floating around YouTube. Yeah, I saw that when it first came out. It's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah, Psycho 2 is terrific, though. Psycho 2 is my favorite of the sequels. It's excellent. Psycho 3 is not bad. Anthony Perkins himself directed the third film, and it's the goriest by far, but it's got some great stuff in it. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a fan.
The film critic is a fan.
He's a fan of Psycho. Yeah, I am.
All right, so 4 stars for you.
Yep.
I would say 4 stars for me.
Mm-hmm. Anything you would change?
Oh,
anything
no.
You wanted to see?
I can't change Hitchcock. I mean, gosh.
Well, Gus Van Sant certainly thought he could.
Yeah, that takes a lot of hubris and just confidence.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I like that he did it because it's there's a lot of remakes. There's never been anything like that. They'll never do a remake like that again. They'll never do like Casablanca in color and set it in modern day. With like whatever Tom Selleck and Julia Roberts and whoever.
I would actually watch that. I think. Did
I just sell you on that?
Yeah, because I didn't love Casablanca, so I feel like I would watch a remake. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who do you think? Who should play Sam? The one who's at the piano played against Sam. Who would you cast?
I don't know. George Clooney.
Really?
I don't know.
Well, it's got to be a musician.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Play it again, Sam. The dude at the piano.
I know. I've seen the movie one time.
Usher Raymond. That's my pick.
Usher?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I got confused. We
clearly need to do an episode on Casablanca.
No, don't make me watch it again.
Oh, really? You dislike it that much?
Yeah, everyone thinks like the ending is so great, but I just think it's sad.
It is. That's why it's so great. It's tragic.
Wow.
The whole thing of like, this looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship. All they have is each other at the end of the movie. It's like, man, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
The love of his life just flew away.
I don't want to be bummed out.
Yeah, I know, like those endings where it's like he's running to the airport, Ain't No Mountain High Enough is playing the soundtrack. It's like, wait, stop the plane! Ain't no mountain high enough, stop the plane! Bobby, you came back! I love you, I love you! And everybody in the plane starts applauding, including the captain. I hate those movies. I love Psycho.
All right, well, I think we've covered all the Psycho things.
All Psycho things.
Mm-hmm. So that wraps it up. That wraps up our discussion of Hitchcock's Psycho.
Good night, Norman!